Hey everyone, today we're diving into some fascinating stories about the development of US military technology since 2003. Back then, NASA launched two super advanced Mars rovers, getting them closer than ever to our red planet. These rovers were like twins, each featuring parts made from steel beams salvaged from the 9/11 attacks. They were a symbol of humanity saying goodbye to tough times on Earth and turning our gaze back to the stars. But here's a fun fact. As these Mars probes were getting ready to head into orbit, NASA realized, oops, they hadn't named the rovers yet. All they had were these technical, kind of macho names, Mars Rover A and Mars Rover B. Not exactly catchy, right? So, NASA teamed up with Lego and kicked off a naming contest, inviting American kids aged 5 to 18 to come up with names for the rovers. One standout was a letter from Sophie Collins, a 9-year-old Russian immigrant girl. She wrote, "I used to live in an orphanage, dark, cold, lonely. Every night, I would gaze up at the starry sky to ease my sorrow, dreaming of one day flying into space. In America, I can make my dream come true. Thank you, America, for giving me courage and opportunity." Her heartfelt message struck a chord with Americans' hope for the future. Out of over 10,000 suggestions, NASA chose the names Courage and Opportunity. In January 2004, the Spirit and Opportunity rovers landed on Mars, kicking off the longest and most successful planetary exploration mission ever. Spirit was only meant to last 90 days but kept going for 7 years, and Opportunity for an impressive 15 years. NASA and its team, led by Administrator Michael Griffin, became national heroes. Griffin was seen as a true tech genius, even more passionate than folks like Elon Musk. We all remember the golden age of space exploration during the Cold War, when the US and the Soviet Union were racing to explore every planet, throwing resources left and right. That era wrapped up with the Cold War's end. Nowadays, everything's about profit and efficiency. Investments need to pay off. The romantic dreams of space chasing faded and ROI, or return on investment, became king. This shift was tough for Griffin, a tech enthusiast at heart. He had to push back the retirement of the space shuttle and finish building the International Space Station with its last few launches. In 2007, he even pitched sending humans to Mars within 20 years, 9 years before Elon Musk set that goal. Fast forward to January 2017, when Donald Trump took office as president. The next month, Griffin was appointed Deputy Secretary of Defense to oversee scientific research. The Department of Defense isn't usually into space programs like NASA's, and the Mars mission had already moved to Elon Musk's team a year earlier. So, Griffin's new role was all about something else: hypersonic weapons. At that time, China had developed the Dongfeng 17 missile. Originally created in response to South Korea's THAAD system, this missile changed the game by bringing back the threat of ballistic missiles, something the US had thought neutralized after the Gulf War with Patriot missiles. Hypersonic weapons are super versatile. They can counter defenses like THAAD or even serve as intercontinental missiles. This made the US's missile defense systems outdated, similar to how the Maginot Line failed in history. Trump was determined to make America great again by not falling behind China in this cutting-edge tech. Griffin, being both technically savvy and aligned with the president's vision, emphasized how the Dongfeng 17 could disrupt US military strategies. He warned that if the US couldn't counter these hypersonic weapons, it might have to back down or risk mutual destruction with nuclear weapons, an unthinkable outcome. Just 10 days into his new role, Griffin gave a speech at the Department of Defense outlining their tech research direction. The Pentagon-supported scientific projects must have a top priority, and hypersonic technology is my top priority. I'm not here to restore balance with our rivals. I want them to surrender. I want them to once again feel the fear of being unable to surpass us. This declaration marked the start of a hypersonic race with China. Griffin was all in, pushing the Navy, Air Force, Army, and DARPA to launch about 10 hypersonic vehicle projects. But by 2024, things weren't looking great. On March 29, 2023, Andrew Hunter, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Procurement, announced that due to ongoing failures, the Air Force was dropping the ARRW project. It was clear that Griffin, despite his technical background and leadership skills, didn't fully grasp the complexities within the Department of Defense's research teams, leading to significant setbacks for the U.S. hypersonic weapons program. So, who exactly threw a wrench into the U.S. hypersonic weapons plans? To figure that out, let's rewind to the Cold War era. Back in the 1980s, things were heating up. The U.S. launched the Strategic Defense Initiative, aka the Star Wars program, to counter the Soviet Union's nuclear edge. While some parts were just smoke and mirrors, a few actually worked. On their side, the Soviets didn't back down. They rolled out the A-135 Amur Strategic Anti-Ballistic Missile Defense System, wiping out America's tech advantage once again. To get past the Soviet defenses, American scientists quickly tested the BGRV hypersonic glide warhead and the AIM-RV maneuverable gliding warhead. But early on, they struggled with navigation accuracy and tech for better warhead and guidance systems. So, the U.S. pivoted to focusing on multiple warheads and advanced guidance to boost penetration, keeping the hypersonic weapons development on track. Fast forward to the 21st century, and things got tricky. Hypersonic tech still wasn't fully nailed down, facing big hurdles like material limits, air viscosity, and stable propulsion. The U.S. kept researching, but no major breakthroughs happened. Just when everything seemed steady, China came out of nowhere and surged ahead. Griffin was baffled. NASA had the X-series experimental aircraft for hypersonic tests and tons of crucial data on aerodynamics, entropy layers, and shock waves from hypersonic vehicles. They even shared this info with DARPA and contractors. So why couldn't the U.S. whip up hypersonic weapons? Griffin didn't realize that the Department of Defense and NASA have totally different research styles. Their unconventional approaches were beyond what Griffin, who was more tech-focused, could grasp. Take the ARRW program, for example. Griffin had high hopes for it. Started at his request by the Air Force as a hypersonic weapons system, it got the official name AGM-183A missile based on its suppliers. This missile has a solid fuel rocket booster and a wedge-shaped glider, hitting speeds between Mach 6.5 to Mach 8. A B-52 bomber can carry 4 to 6 of these missiles, basically slapping a DF-17-like missile onto a bomber, much like what China was doing. This system was key to the U.S.'s strategy of a global strike within 1 hour, with tons of resources poured into it. But development was a constant struggle. Since May 2021, there were 13 tests, 4 successes, 5 failures, and 4 with no results announced. Knowing the U.S. tends to be transparent, those unannounced results probably meant failures. Like in a 2021 test, the missile didn't launch from the bomber when the pilot hit the release button. So, the bomber had to circle with the missile on board before making an emergency landing. That test was one of the unannounced ones. Why was the project hitting so many bumps? Because the people in charge were unreliable. One supervisor, James Gold, the chief scientist at the AFRL and a member of the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, was not only steering the technical side but also handling funds and supplier bids. Suppliers knew he had a lot of power. But Gord had a hobby: social activities with personal companions. His job meant traveling often for meetings, and almost every trip involved hiring personal companions, 27 in total. These expenses were hidden as travel costs on official business cards, so they didn't show up on his personal bills and kept his spouse unaware. This sneaky approach kept his activities under wraps. On one flight, Gord met Amanda Savino. He couldn't pass up the chance and got her contact info. Gord found out Savino offered personal companionship services for $400 an hour. This flight was an unexpected assignment, and being the experienced guy he was, Gord knew to seize opportunities. Instead of hiring companions everywhere, which could cause problems, he decided to bring Savino on board permanently. But there was a snag. Gord worked at White-Patterson Base, home to the Air Force's top hypersonic missile and space reconnaissance teams, plus the Intel headquarters, all under tight security. Bringing a companion into such a secure place was super tough. Still, as chief scientist, Gord used his skills to discreetly hire Savino as a temporary worker, getting her into the base without raising red flags. So, Gord approached Sukesh Roy, CEO of Spectrum Energy, one of the project suppliers, and told him he'd met a young and promising professional, referring to Savino. He claimed Savino had achieved multiple breakthroughs in her field and was perfect for the administrative technical role. So, to earn Roy's trust, Gord decided to show him Savino's resume. Savino had a biochemistry degree from the University of Tennessee and some credentials from the University of Cincinnati College of Medicine. But who exactly is Gord? Well, he was the guy in charge of funding the project. Roy didn't really want to step on his toes, so he quickly greenlit Savino's hiring with a hefty $250,000 annual salary. This move let Savino sneak into the base as a research assistant and work closely with Gord. At first, bringing in a friend or family member for a paid position at a connected institution wasn't that unusual. Roy didn't think much of it. As long as Gord supported him with funding, that $250,000 salary seemed like a small price to pay. But things didn't stay rosy for long. Roy soon noticed that Savino's work was seriously lacking. She couldn't even handle basic office software and had trouble writing coherent emails. Her way of speaking didn't match that of someone with her supposed education. Trying to dig deeper, Roy asked for Savino's transcripts from both universities, but she couldn't produce any. Even though she struggled with office tasks, Roy was still bringing her to meetings and had her leading a scientific group at the Defense Laser Research and Application (RAPID) conference. She was casually chatting with top scientists, which was messed up. Unlike academic colleagues who might need a favor to publish a paper, Savino was just manipulating things and harming the scientific community's reputation. Roy realized that if Savino kept attending these meetings and mingling with prominent scientists, Spectrum Energy's reputation would take a hit. Even if she stayed quiet during conferences, there was no guarantee that the scientists wouldn't recognize her. So, Roy decided to move Savino from her research role to the logistics department. But his plan hit a huge wall. Almost the entire research team opposed it. Why? A military investigation later revealed, despite Savino's obvious incompetence in basic physics, engineering, and word processing in daily office tasks, she managed to stay in the lab by supposedly sharing her expertise with other scientists at the base. What expertise did Savino actually have? It turned out a scientist named IK was paying her $20,000 a year to clean his apartment. And get this, she had to do it without any clothes on. IK claimed that Savino freed him from household chores and work exhaustion, giving him more time to focus on research and development. Clearly, Savino wasn't happy being just Gord's subordinate and started involving herself in the US's most secretive hypersonic missile labs. Over 2 years, she engaged in inappropriate behavior with numerous scientists there. Roy couldn't take it anymore and decided to report Gord, pushing for Savino's firing. Gord didn't take it well. He got super angry and even threatened Roy, saying, "You're white and I'm Bangladeshi. Even if you file a complaint, the AFRL's Old Boys Club will never believe you." Plus, Gord didn't want the company car he got with public funds to be used differently. In October 2018, Gord kicked Savino out of Spectrum Energy and sent her to a competitor, Innovative Technology Solutions Incorporated, ISSI, as a technical research assistant. But Gord wasn't done. He blamed Roy for mishandling things and stopped his funding. Roy was furious. He thought Gord was just arranging favors for friends and family, but it turned out Gord had set up an escort. "I'm cleaning up for you," And you're still holding back my funds. Is there any justice? Roy exclaimed. By March 2019, Roy took Gord to the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, AFOSI. AFOSI was stunned by the craziness of the situation and launched an investigation, uncovering some shocking stuff. They found no records of Savino attending the University of Tennessee or University of Cincinnati Medical School, proving she was fake. In Gord's office, they found women's underwear, condoms, and erectile dysfunction meds. On Gord's computer, there were nude photos and records of Cautious Desire, a Cincinnati escort service, along with cheesy messages between Gord and 27 escorts. When they checked out these escorts, some were from countries that are security threats to the U.S. AFOSI charged Gord with misusing government property, making false claims, racial intimidation, serious threats, and extorting U.S. officials. But just when things were heating up, Gord killed himself. Nobody knows why. Maybe he was scared of the guilt or trying to cover something up. Aside from the escort drama, were there more scandals? It all fizzled out after Gord's death. A year later, in 2020, the USAF announced they were ending the ARRW program. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our channel.